Hello, today is Monday, August 10th, 2026. Here is your daily signal. Iran's Supreme National Security Council has announced a sweeping list of demands aimed at the United States, including total compensation for war damage, that must be met before Iran will reopen the Strait of Hormuz, according to Fortune. The Strait of Hormuz serves as a crucial maritime chokepoint, with approximately 20% of the world's oil transiting through its waters, a fact that has sustained an atmosphere of geopolitical tension in the region for decades. Iran has consistently leveraged the threat of strait closures as a negotiating tactic in its disputes with the West, and this latest escalation centers on reparations for past conflicts. On August 8, 2026, the Council declared that the strait will remain closed until the United States corrects its behavior, and their official communique, published by Fortune, highlighted the regime's insistence on direct U.S. financial reparations. The continuation of the closure stands to disrupt 20% of global daily oil shipments in the near term, likely triggering a sharp spike in global oil prices. The move could draw intervention from international navies or emergency diplomatic efforts, and as the economic pressures mount, regional instability may prompt swift responses from Gulf neighbors and international institutions. Over the medium term, countries and companies may accelerate diversification away from strait-dependent shipping routes and invest in alternative energy infrastructure to mitigate ongoing risk. Next, we turn to the shifting landscape of the U.S. jobs market. As reported by Fortune, the July 2026 jobs report from the U.S. Labor Department showed a deficit of 23,000 jobs, underscoring what analysts now see as weaker than expected economic performance. Regular updates from the Bureau of Labor Statistics are an essential part of how policymakers, economists, and markets gauge the health of the economy, but recent months have revealed significant downward revisions between preliminary and finalized figures. In particular, May and June payroll numbers were revised down by 103,000 jobs, suggesting initial estimates substantially overstated job growth. Meanwhile, the July unemployment rate dropped to 4.1%, but this was largely attributed to more Americans leaving the labor market rather than a surge in hiring. The immediate policy implication is that the Federal Reserve and other economic authorities may hesitate before raising interest rates any further. If downward revisions become the norm, market volatility could rise as confidence in the preliminary data erodes. Softer employment growth may weigh on consumer spending and the broader economy, and renewed talk of fiscal stimulus or support programs could resurface if labor market weakness continues. Now, on to environmental policy challenges emerging from the tech sector. TechCrunch reports that Amazon's planned Texas data center could soon become the single largest source of climate pollution in the United States, thanks to its proposed on-site fossil fuel power plant. The dramatic expansion of on-site power generation is being driven by the cloud computing and AI boom, with U.S. data centers consuming about 2% of national electricity use as of 2023, a number that continues to climb. Companies like Amazon are increasingly building large on-site fossil fuel plants to provide reliable electricity to data centers, but this strategy is attracting concern over its potential to raise local air pollution and overall carbon emissions. The Environmental Protection Agency and Texas state regulators are expected to scrutinize the facility, while local authorities and public advocates warn of significant health and regulatory impacts should pollution increase in nearby communities. In the short term, Amazon's move could become a precedent for other tech giants, fueling emissions growth across the sector and undermining U.S. climate targets. Longer term, political and regulatory pressure is likely to build for reforming air quality and greenhouse gas standards, as widespread adoption of such models could threaten to roll back hard-won gains on climate action. Now, onto the markets. International markets saw broad upward movement, led by Japan's EWJ with a day-over-day increase of 1.8% and standout momentum in Germany and France as well. In commodities, gold gained 2.3% and silver jumped 2.9%, while U.S. oil USO edged down 0.7% and copper CPR dropped 2.1%. Uranium URA was a notable gainer today. In the favorites group, Microsoft MSFD was little changed but holds a 30% gain over the month, while Adobe added 1.9% on the day and NVIDIA NVDA rose 2.2%. Among sectors, the S&P 500 SPY advanced 0.6% with chipmakers in the SOX ETF up 2% and healthcare Roman 45 adding 0.7%, but financials XLF slipped 0.4%. The session's top gainer was Yunji YJ soaring 124%, while Banzai International Para led decliners after dropping 84%. That's it for today. You can find more news and details on our website. Goodbye.